So today, I would like to teach you about some of the words and terms that are used in Ayurvedic medicine. This way, if you are researching or looking something up and you hear these words, you maybe can understand what they mean. These words come from the Ayurvedic Sanskrit language, and by understanding their translation, you can learn what you can do to know and understand yourself better. By doing this, you're able to be your healthiest self by bringing your body back into balance through diet and lifestyle choices. So today I'll be introducing you to these few key points. The first one is what the 3 Ayurvedic doshas are, how do elements play a role in our life, why do tastes matter, what is a guna, what is the difference between a dhatu and a shrota, and how do prana, ojas, and tejas work together? All right, let's get started. In Ayurveda, there are 3 basic body types that we learn about, and they're classified with the title of dosha. So 3 different types of doshas. And the first one is anabolic body type, and it's called kapha. The second one is catabolic body type, and that is classified for pitta. And then there's a deficient body type, and that's classified as or called vata. And each one of these has certain characteristics about them, and so we'll go into that for each one of them. But the kapha body style is typically cooler in either in like temperature and or digestive type. And the pitta or catabolic type is hotter, and the vata or deficient type is colder. And this is just one aspect of the dosha itself. There's so much to talk about with each one of the doshas. Kapha is water and earth elements, and pitta is fire and water elements, and vata is air and ether elements. So to talk a little bit more about kapha in detail, we'll start with that one first. It is the body type that is characterized by the growth of tissue, and that's why it's called anabolic. And kapha people tend to produce more mucus and fat and retain more fluids. Body type is stable and relaxed. The biocharacteristics that make up kapha are oily, cold, heavy, dull, gooey, soft, and stable. And something that we often look at for each one of the doshas is what it looks like when they're out of balance. But a kapha imbalance can cause a person to become a certain way. And so they usually become stubborn, depressed, tired, and possessive. And they easily tend towards weight gain, stagnation, and congestion. Kapha body types, they do best on lighter foods like green vegetables and legumes. They should avoid sweets, oversleeping, and withdrawing from the world. They have a heavier body build, like a heavier structure. They tend towards like square features and a denser build. And then some of their looks, or the things that can kind of classify them as kapha specifically, are things like bright eyes, big eyes, thick, luscious hair. Definitely like familiar foods, and they resist trying new things. So the emotions and stamina type of a kapha are steady, calm, healthy, and strong. And of all the body types, they have the greatest stamina and immunity. I always think of it like the story of the tortoise and the hare, and kapha is slow and steady, and the one that will win the race. So now we're going to talk a little bit about vata. And vata in Sanskrit, the word literally means wind. And if you remember right, vata is air and ether, so there's definitely some wind involved. And some of the biocharacteristics for vata are dry, light, cold, rough, subtle, and mobile. And often the imbalance for vata is dryness. So vata always shows up as a deficiency. To stay balanced, vata people must choose a diet and lifestyle habits that rebuild rather than breaking down. The quality of vata is also what makes movement in our body possible. So that includes muscles, nerve impulses, and thoughts are all because of Vata. So some of the characteristics of a Vata constitution is a light body weight. They talk and walk quickly, but they also can be creative and imaginative. Um, they're vivacious and outgoing. They're always up for an adventure, and they easily adapt to change, and they enjoy being on the go. However, Vatas they also have a very sensitive nervous system, and so they're quickly overstimulated and easily imbalanced. Hello, we are going to talk about the 5 elements. Those 5 elements are air, ether, earth, water, and fire. And these 5 elements are the most basic kinds of matter. And so the importance of these 5 elements is that our 5 senses have evolved in the context of the natural world. So we always know, and our bodies are well attuned to interpret and assess the environment using the concept of these 5 elements. They're just the most basic. We understand air, we understand ether, we understand fire, water, and earth. So let's go into them a little bit more. So the first element, ether, is very interesting because it correlates with form, like nature or shape. And so an object has both substance and it has a shape. When this shape disintegrates or is reformed into another shape, there is a change. Not in the substance is still the same, but it's a change of ether. Ether is characterized by non-resistance, space, receptibility. It's subtle, soft, and light. Weight loss increases ether element. Isolation, loneliness, drugs, spiritual practices that increase spaciness, those all have ether elements to them. Next, we have air. And the air element correlates with movement, direction, the process of change. The change is the ether, but the process of the change, it's light, it's dry, it's subtle, it's cold, and dispersive. Substances that increase air include caffeine, pungent spices, exercises, and mental stimulation. It's associated with thoughts, nerve impulses, our breath, touch, peristalsis, and the muscular system, our skeleton system. And air is always is linked to the Vata dosha, just because Vata has air in it. However, excess air in the system can cause dry, rough skin. It can cause gas, bloating, hiccups, cramping, irregular digestion, anxiety, insomnia, erratic movement like tics or twitches, spasms like muscle spasms, scattered thinking, inability to organize our thoughts, and talking without thinking. Fire element, it's hot, it's penetrating, it's subtle, light, and dry. And alcohol, pungent spices, and analytical activity increase the fire element in us. And transformation in the body. We need that heat to have our digestive system work properly, because Agni in our gut is made of fire, the heat. So it helps break down and process everything we come into contact with. But excess fire in the body can look like rashes and acne, flushed skin, excessive sweat, serious hunger, but with an inability to gain weight. So it's really just burning up stuff quickly. Anger and hostility would show up with excess heat, and infection and inflammation. And the water element, it's fluid, it's sticky, it's soft, and it's associated with sweetness, emotion, and fertility. But excess water can present as an edema, feeling heavy, fatigued, or dull, excess mucus secretions, diarrhea, loose watery stools, And the last element is earth. And the earth element is heavy, it's solid, it's dense. Just like the earth is, it gives our body substance and solidity. And like all solid parts of the body are an expression of the earth element. And so this just describes all the elements. They're definitely all around us, a part of our lives, but it's really neat to learn how you can apply that to understanding what elements were made up the most, but also what elements could be out of balance, and how we can bring the elements in to get us into balance. Thanks. Hi, we're going to talk about taste. And in Ayurveda, it identifies 6 tastes: sweet, sour, salty, bitter, pungent, and astringent. And we all know that our foods taste a certain way as a result of our taste buds telling us so. But more importantly, those tastes create a sensation in our body, which is not something I realized before I started learning Ayurveda. Let's go through each of the 6 tastes. The first one is sweet. The sweet taste is in any foods that build tissue. So that's including macronutrients like carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. They're considered sweet foods. So that includes like meats, nuts, seeds, dairy, eggs, fruits like bananas, mangoes, grains such as rice or wheat, and vegetables like beets, carrots, cucumbers, and sweet potatoes. So some of these foods are not foods you may have thought of as being sweet. Then there's sour. And we all know sour, like if you bite into a lemon, that is sour. And sour foods are those that are fermented or like acidic, like yogurt, wine, beer, miso, and pickles are all considered sour. Then there's like acidic fruits, like the lemon, but there's also sub-acidic fruits like peaches that are also considered sour. So they're not like, they have some sweetness to them, but they have more sour than they have sweet. Foods have multiple tastes to them as well. The next taste is salty. So if you've had a bowl of miso soup, you can understand salty. That's what salty tastes like. But salty does refer to anything with salt or a high mineral content. So seaweed, black olives, tuna, feta, and anchovies are all examples of salty foods. Then there's bitter. When you eat a salad made of arugula, I'm sure you've tasted the bitter taste of that type of green that is just obviously bitter. Or if you take a bite of dark chocolate, just all dark chocolate, no sugar added, it's very, very bitter. The cool thing about bitter foods is that it stimulates peristalsis and promotes the release of bile in the liver and gallbladder. And this is really important for our elimination pathway. Then there's astringent taste, and astringent foods promote the constriction. So like drawing together or dryness, I kind of think of, when you can kind of feel it, it gets astringent in your mouth. It's like pulling out the moisture. And so eating them makes your mouth feel rough or dry. So some astringents are leafy greens or green bananas and cranberries. Those are all examples of astringents. And then the last taste is pungent. And pungent foods are sharp, spicy, and they irritate your mouth. And examples are black pepper, chilies, and hard liquor. A subtype of pungent is herbs and spices that are strong smelling or aromatic, such as peppermint, cardamom, ginger, garlic, thyme, and cinnamon are all. A balanced Ayurvedic diet includes all 6 of the taste in every meal. But each individual should adjust the quantity of the taste for our own body types. So the taste you should favor is going to depend on your constitution. So for example, Vata, which refers to all bodily processes that are catabolic or dry out the body or trigger movement. When they're out of balance, Vata types tend to be dry, cool, and light. So they should favor, to help strengthen them and bring them back into balance, sweet, sour, and salty. As opposed to Pitta, which describes all bodily processes that are metabolic, generate heat, and when they're out of balance, Pitta people can be like hot, inflamed, irritable, and angry. And so the following taste that helps strengthen pittas and bring them back into balance is sweet, bitter, and astringent. And lastly, kapha, which refers to the bodily process that are anabolic, which moistens, nourishes, and repairs. But when they're out of balance, they can become sluggish and depressed. And so the following tastes help strengthen kaphas and bring them back into balance, which is pungent, bitter, and astringent. So I'm hoping that you learned something from taste, something new that would help you understand how you can pay more attention to taste in your life. Hello there. We are going to talk about what is a guna. If you hear this word and you don't know what it means, it could really throw you off. But in Ayurveda, the word guna is a biocharacteristic that can describe a food you are eating, or how you feel, or something you're experiencing outside, like weather or a season, and even emotions. So really, a guna is a quality, and we call it biocharacteristic in Ayurveda. But we have these qualities all around us in our food and the world around us, and things we see, feel, hear, like everything. So I'm going to list the 20 gunas just so you can get an idea of what they are, and you'll be familiar with all of these words, and they can be applied to everything that we experience. And there's opposites. So like the first one is hot, and the opposite would be cold. And so this is just for the list, but we can be experiencing any of these. Then there's dry or oily is the opposite of it. Light and heavy. Dull and sharp. Mobile and stable. Slimy and rough. Dense and liquid. Subtle and gross. Clear or cloudy. Soft or hard. So in Ayurveda, the concept of guna refers to these 20 qualities or attributes that we use to describe the nature of everything around us. It can apply to all substances, including food, herbs, people, the environment, and these qualities are used to understand the characteristics and the behavior of each substance. So we can call an emotion cold, but we can also call like the weather cold, or our food cold, or food cooling. So you can use it with everything, and it helps us determine how the food or the behavior interacts with each other and within our body. So it can make us cool, to feel cool, or to cool us down. Anyways, each guna has a specific effect on the body and the mind. So if we understand the gunas are essential for us to choose the right foods for our body, including herbs and even the lifestyle practices that we need to maintain and balance our well-being. When we understand what qualities we have in us, or what biocharacteristics or qualities are out of balance in us, then we know which ones to bring in. So the way that we can apply the gunas is that if we understand them, we can apply them through choosing foods that balance out the gunas. It's always like the opposite. You want to choose foods that have the opposite quality to help balance out whatever guna is out of balance. We can use herbs and spices that have a specific guna property to treat health conditions. So even like a disease or health condition has certain qualities to it, and if we have too much of that in our body, then we can use herbs and spices that have the opposite guna or quality to them to balance us out, and to kind of even just change that condition in our body. So a good example would be using calming herbs to balance out our mind or nervous system if they're out of balance. We could practice yoga and meditation to balance the gunas and promote well-being when we need to be grounding. We need to do something that's calming. So there's practices as well as foods, weather, environment, the way people act, emotions, personalities, like you name it, it can have a guna associated with describing it. So the Ayurvedic concept of guna is a complex and multifaceted system, but it helps us provide a deeper understanding of the nature of substances and their effects on the body and mind, which I think is amazing. So by understanding the gunas, we as individuals can make informed choices about our diet, our lifestyle, and other health practices to maintain balance and well-being in our bodies. So we're going to talk about what a Dwatu is. In Ayurvedic anatomy, there are 7 layers or tissues of the body. Dwatus are the materials that are in our body. So like the first layer is called rasa, and rasa translates to the lymph. And the second one is rakta, and rakta translates to the red blood cells in our body. And then the next Dwatu or tissue layer is mamsa, which is our muscle layer. The next tissue layer is meda, and that is the fat in our body. Then asti is our bones, and maja is our nervous system, and sukra or artava are the reproductive organs. So those are the materials or the tissue layers in our body. And the food that we eat nourishes each one of these tissues one after the other in succession. And the previous layer plays a key role in nourishment of the current one. Nourishing each one of the Dwatus takes 5 days each. But it starts at the lymph and it takes 5 days before the nourishment that we ate goes to the next layer, which is then the red blood cells, then the muscle, then the fat, then the bone, then the nervous system, and then the last one is the reproductive organs. A meal takes 35 days to complete or go through the process of each one of the tissues or the Dwatus. At the end of 35 days, the food nourishes your general health and wellness as ojas are produced. And it's crazy that the food you ate a month ago is still affecting your body today. I want to talk about each one of the tissues. First one is lymph or the rasa Dwatu. Its main function is to provide nutrition and immunity. So rasa is the prime tissue that hydrates and nourishes all the rest of our body tissues. So rasa's nature is oily, heavy, stable, and cool. The next tissue is rakta, which is our red blood cells, and rakta gives the body life because it carries oxygen to all the tissues of the body through these red blood cells. Hot, sharp, and pungent in nature. The next tissue is the muscle, which is the mamsa Dwatu, and your muscle tissue plasters your whole body together. So mamsa is composed of earth and fire elements. It is heavy, stable, and dense. The next tissue is the fat or the meda Dwatu, and the function of this is to lubricate and insulate our body. And meda is heavy, oily, and dense. The next tissue is our bones or the asti Dwatu. And asti serves to support the body to protect the organs. And asti is heavy, it's stable, it's gross and dense in qualities. And it's mostly composed of the earth elements, or in fact, your body's storehouse for minerals like calcium, phosphorus, and magnesium, which are some of the things that are in electrolytes. But 99% of the body's calcium is in our bones. The sixth tissue is our nerves, or the maja Dwatu. And maja governs communication, sensory perception, memory, and learning. And so oil is like food to your maja Dwatu because it nourishes the myelin sheath. Maja is subtle and easily overstimulated. It's comprised mostly of ether and air. Remember, those are vata, and then fire. And the last tissue layer is our sukra Dwatu for men and the artava Dwatu for women, and that is translated as the reproductive tissues. It is mainly comprised of water, earth, and fire elements. And if we can break down the root causes of health issues, we can identify which tissue in our body needs the most support. If you had lots of cracking and popping joints, we need to support our osti or our bones. Each layer is unique and essential in experiencing optimal health. Shratamsi is the management of the materials. So we learned about the dwatus, which were the tissues of our body, but the Shratamsi manages all of these materials. There's 16 Shratamsis. Prana, which is your respiratory system, so that's energy, vitality, and lungs. Then the next one's Ana, which is your digestive system. Ambu, water metabolism. Rasa is your lymphatic system, so your plasma and your lymph. Then Rakta is your blood vessels, so the red blood cells. Mamsa is your muscular system, your muscles. Meta is your adipose system, so fat. Asti is your skeletal system. Maja is your nervous system. Shruka is the male reproductive system. Artava is the female reproductive system. Mutra is your urinary system. Sveda is your sebaceous system, so sweat. Parisha is your poop channel. Your Raja is the menstruation system. And your Stanya is your lactation system. Your Mano, which is the mind and your subtle body. So there's a bunch of systems that manage the materials in our body. So there's one Shrota for each of the 7 Dwatus, which were the tissues that we have talked about. So we have the Asti is the bone management system, and then Rasa Rakta is the blood management system, and then Sukra Artava is your sex organ management system. Meta is your fat management system. Mamsa is your muscle management system. Maja is your nervous system management system. Mano is your mind management system. The channels or pathways allow different parts of our body to work together. And so they carry messages through nutrients and hormones from one place to another. And so this is like our body's transit system. So in Ayurvedic medicine, Shrotas refers to the inner transport system of the body, which provides a platform for various biological processes to occur. So the overall function of the Shrotas is transportation of nutrients and waste products, a regulation of body temperature, the maintenance of our pH balance, regulation of blood pressure, regulation of immune function, regulation of hormone balance, and a regulation of digestion and assimilation of nutrients. So let's talk about the different types of Shrotas. So we got Ana, Vaha, Shrotas. These Shrotas are responsible for the transportation, digestion, and assimilation of food particles and nutrients. So they include the digestive tract, the liver, and the pancreas. Then there's the Rasa, Vaha, Shrotas. And these Shrotas are involved in the transportation of nutrient-rich fluids throughout the body. They include the circulatory system, lymphatic system, and nervous system. The Rakta, Vaha Shrotas are responsible for the transportation of blood and other fluids throughout the body, and they include the circulatory system. The Mamsa Vaha Shrotas, these Shrotas are involved in transportation of nutrients and waste products in the muscles and connective tissues. So then there's our Meta Vaha Shrotas, which if you remember is our fat system. And so these Shrotas are responsible for transporting the nutrients and the waste to the fatty tissues. Then there's the Asti Vaha Shrotas, and these Shrotas are involved in transporting nutrients and waste products into the bones and connective tissues. Then the Maja does the same thing for our nervous system, and the Shruka does the same thing for our reproductive systems. And the imbalances in Shrotas can lead to various diseases and disorders that we can specifically see based on the symptoms, if you will. And understanding and balancing the Shrotas is essential for maintaining optimal health and preventing disease, because we're able to focus on that specific area that is imbalanced rather than just like the whole body as a whole. So thank you for listening to me talk about the Shrotas. We're going to talk about prana. Ayurveda believes that all disease is due to stagnant prana. Prana is a Sanskrit word that means constant motion. Prana is the original creative life force that we all have, and in Chinese medicine, it is called qi. Prana is the usable energy directed by tejas, which is our metabolism, and provisioned by ojas, which is our immunity. So prana is kinetic energy, while ojas is potential energy. Prana is carried by the breath in our body. Oxygen is also a form of prana because oxygen helps us to convert food into energy. Prana consists of the ether and air elements. Prana is raw energy, and using too much prana can cause a deficiency in our ojas, which is our immunity. So we don't want to use too much prana, or then we will be deficient in our immunity. Any imbalance or stress on the body may cause a lack of prana. Prana is the electrical impulse down a nerve, like electricity, and prana is the currency of life because prana comes into our body with our first breath when we're born, and it's the last thing that leaves us when we die. So pretty much any imbalance or stress on the body may cause a lack of prana. So some of the top treatments for prana depletion is to get adequate rest, conscious breathing, so you're getting those deep breaths down into your body, meditation, nurturing yourself. We'll go on to the next topic that is connected to prana, which is ojas. So ojas is a term in Ayurveda that means hardiness. Ojas is a biological substance that circulates through the body, the blood, as different proteins and hormones. Ojas is the most refined essence of our food. And ojas is what is left after all of our bodily tissues are created. So why do we need ojas? Well, healthy ojas is what gives us longevity. Ojas is our natural resistance, so we can think of it as immunity. And ojas is our natural storehouse of strength and vitality. Some of the things that will deplete our ojas is having a weak digestive fire, not moving with the rhythms and cycles of nature, stress, pushing too hard, burning the candle at both ends, not listening to your internal knowing. Any sort of trauma or anything that contracts you and creates resistance. Poor quality relationships can deplete your ojas. Anger towards yourself or others. Too much sexual activity. Too much exercise. Too much work. If you smoking, excess alcohol, overexposure to viruses or bacteria or pathogens. Ojas is so important. We'll move on to tejas so we can understand the three together and how they work together. So now we're going to talk about tejas. And tejas measures the intelligence of our body and mind. It's the ability to regulate bodily processes. It's associated with regulation and the right use of energy. This is including our metabolism rate, our thoughts, our digestion, and immunity. So it's associated with hormones and function of our endocrine organs, our liver, our kidney, our pancreas, and other blood regulating organs, the nerves and the brain, blood as the transport mechanism, and the cell membrane, which is how we accept or resisting chemical messages. So all those things are part of the tejas. And tejas is affected by injury, toxicity, pharmaceuticals, infectious diseases, resistance to hormones, so like insulin resistance or an unresponsive thyroid, tension, stress, and poor circulation. Thank you.